Hey guys, Noah here again, and today we're going to be making one of everyone's favorites, pulled pork. So, a lot of people think that it's actually the butt because it's called the butt, but it's actually the pork shoulder that's used for this. So I got about a 3-pound chunk here of some nice high quality pork. As you guys can see, there's a lot of fat on it. And the first thing we're going to do is just make ourselves a little rub. So I'm going to keep this super simple and do kind of the traditional barbecue rub. Start with salt and pepper. I'm going to do about equal portions. And we're going to make a fair amount of this rub in case we need some more later. So we're starting with a few tablespoons of salt. And we're going to crack a bunch of black pepper into this. So I'm trying out something a little different with this video today. Normally what I do is I make shorter videos and then I edit them and I do the voiceover, but I wanted to try something different today. So I'm going to be doing this whole video live, and I'm not going to do any voiceover later, and this is going to be a little bit longer of a video. So if you want to see the finished results, go ahead and skip to the end, but I'm going to show you guys everything that I do from start to finish to make a pretty realistic, video tutorial on how to do something like this as someone who doesn't have a ton of equipment, doesn't have the fanciest smoke or anything, but you still can get some awesome food out of it. So, a bunch of cracked black pepper. Obviously, you can use the pre-ground stuff if you have it. So, we have ourselves salt and pepper. Now, I just got a bunch of spices and herbs around that I'm going to add. The first thing I'm going to go for, garlic powder. I don't want to go super heavy on any of this stuff, but we don't want to be shy either because we do have a whole lot of pork to season. There's plenty of really good barbecue rubs you guys can go buy. Pretty much any store these days is going to carry a whole variety of blends. But, I think if you have the stuff in your drawer, you might as well make it yourself. Now we're going in with onion powder, about the same amount, and we're basically done with this, guys. Ooh, let me get some more. Now we're going to go in for some of that nice color. So first, cayenne pepper. I like my shit spicy, so we're going to go in with a nice teaspoon or two. Now for some paprika, not going to add a lot of flavor, but again, going to add a nice red color. About a teaspoon of that. And now with some chili powder. Not a ton of that, because we don't want it to taste like chili. And the final thing I'm going to add is a little bit of this peri peri spice blend. Basically just to add a little more heat. It has some good herbs and spices in it. Basically, according to the back, it's chilies, oregano, parsley, lemon peel, onion, garlic, salt, pepper. So, still some pretty typical stuff, but I like it. I think it adds a nice flavor. And then the final thing we're going to add is just a little bit of brown sugar. Not a ton because we don't want to burn the outside of this, but we do want to caramelize it a bit. So, a nice little pinch of brown sugar. So, show you guys that. Sorry if that didn't show up super well on the camera, but it's not that important because you can do this sort of thing with whatever you have. Gonna give it a nice mix. And here's what we look like at the end. So, I'm gonna clear all of our spices out of the way, and we're gonna go to our pork now. So, this is a really nice piece of pork. We got our bone right here, which is what we're gonna be pulling out later. I'm gonna leave all this fat. I think this looks pretty good and trimmed up already on the top. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna rub this down with just a little bit of regular old yellow mustard. You can use olive oil or something. This isn't for flavor. This is just to help our rub stick later. When we put it on the grill, we don't want our rub coming off. So, we're just going to cover the whole thing, not too much. Trust me, if you guys thinking, oh shit, I don't want my pulled pork to take like yellow mustard later, I'm in the same boat with you. I thought this was a little funky the first time I heard it, but this is a very common technique in the world of barbecue because we want to develop the bark on the outside, and that's really only going to come if we have a nice blend of spices coating the outside, and then we give it the time on the smoker to be able to develop that. So, you want to get nice nice sensual with the meat, you know, weird, but give it a little meat massage. Okay, and now I'm gonna go just rinse my hands off because they're pretty mustardy. Now we're gonna come back with our blend. And I think it's a pretty good move to do it in a container, something like this, just because if you have a bunch of spices going everywhere, you don't want to get them on your table. So we're gonna go and we're gonna start on one side, give it a pretty liberal coating, cover the whole thing evenly. And we don't want it caked on there. We just want a nice even layer. Go back and get the top. This is my second or third time making pork butt. I really like it. I think it's a fun meat to cook. Pork is pretty forgiving. There's a lot of fat in there, and it's definitely going to give you a good practice with your smoker, getting the temp right and everything. The idea with this when we're going to actually smoke it is just to hold the temp around 250, 275 until this thing reaches an internal temperature of about 200, 202 degrees, similar to a brisket. A lot of people make the mistake, I think, when they're smoking of just doing the meat too hot and not bringing it up quite high enough on the internal temp. Big chunks of meat like this, you really want to bring it up all the way over 200 degrees to break down all that connective tissue and the fat. All right, so this is what our finished butt looks like. Nice, coated everywhere. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go get our smoker set up. I'm gonna be using my Akorn, but you know, whatever you guys have works. So I'm gonna take you guys outside and we're gonna get started on this pork butt. All right, so we're out here at the grill now. As you guys can see, it's a beautiful sunny California day. We're gonna go ahead and get our Akorn set up. I've had this grill for a few months now, and I have to say I really like it. Coming from using the green egg before, I have to say this thing actually works really well. It's definitely small though, so if you're trying to do a big old brisket or a few racks of ribs, you're not gonna be able to do it on this. But for smaller roasts like this, 1 or 2 racks of ribs, it's perfect. So the first thing we have to do is make sure we don't have a lot of ash buildup in the bottom. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take off this bottom ash catcher compartment. It's kind of a pain to do, but so you guys can see we got a bunch of ash in the bottom from our last couple cooks. Dump it out. Have ourselves a little ash cloud. Fucking volcano. All right. Go ahead, reattach our bottom compartment. It's a Sunday afternoon here, and I think it's really a nice activity to do, especially right now. None of us have anything to do. This is a great activity. So here's what we're gonna do. We have some charcoal left in there, but we're gonna go back and we're gonna add a little more. So I'm going to be showing you guys a slightly different technique of lighting this than I've done before, just because I think it works a little better for slower cooks. So traditionally what I would do, fucking tradition, okay. Usually what I would do is just make a little kind of tower or house of charcoal around the starter itself, and then, oh shit, I put this on backwards. And then I would light it, you know, give it 10-15 minutes for it to really light the majority of the coals, and then go ahead and you shut it down, get it to temp. Well, you know, I found that would actually bring the temp up too fast, and we'd end up kind of chasing it back down, so to speak. So I think a little easier move is to kind of place one of the starters directly kind of on top. Maybe, you know, stack 1 or 2 pieces of charcoal on top of it, but really only light a few pieces, because otherwise you're gonna be kind of playing catch up with the temp. So get ourselves a little starter cube. You can use whatever, but these are I think Kamado. Get them wherever. I usually get mine at Ace Hardware. They have pretty good selection. So we're gonna go ahead and light our starter off. Don't rush this shit. You definitely don't want to rush this process, because you know, this is gonna be smoking for several hours, and there's not much we're gonna be able to do shy of opening this thing up and fucking around with it later. So basically just surrounding it with a few pieces of charcoal, but we're not going crazy building a big tower or anything around it. And we're just gonna give this 5 or 10 minutes. Make sure your vents are opened up. And this is really a patience game now, guys. We don't want to rush anything. We just want to make sure that we get our fire perfectly where we want it before we throw our pork on. All right, so I'm gonna let this thing get up to temp, and I'm gonna show you guys the next step. All right, so the grill's been going for about 10 minutes. We got some good heat going, and now we're gonna start closing it down and getting it up to temp. So as far as actual smoke goes, I'm using some oak wood in chunks, and I'm just gonna go ahead and nestle some pieces in there. Go with a big chunk in the middle where it's kind of already lit. And go for another chunk. And that should be pretty good. We'll do a couple little ones for good measure. And now we want to go put our indirect unit, this piece of ceramic, up on top. That's going to kind of deflect the temperature so we're not getting flame or actual direct heat onto the pork. It's kind of being directed around and the smoke will circulate. So now what we're going to do is we're going to close this top down. We're going to open up the top. So we're going to try to bring this thing to about 250, 275. This is the part where you don't want to leave the grill. When you're doing something like this, you want to make sure you're hanging out here and you're going to be watching this temperature gauge because we don't want it getting too hot right now. It's not a big deal if it's a little too low. We can bring it up. But if it gets too hot, it's really going to be tough later to bring the temp back down. So I'm going to leave the vents pretty good and open until this thing starts pumping some heat out. I'm just using kind of my hand as a gauge. And I'm not feeling a ton of heat yet, but it's building. Pretty soon we should see some good smoke coming through the top. There we go. All right, so we're just gonna hang out here for a few minutes until our grill gets up to temp. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Okay, one last thing before I forget. This thing's gonna drip off a lot of fat, so we just want to put something down to catch that so you don't have any flare-ups on the smoker. So I just made a little tinfoil boat thing to catch some of our drippings. There we go. All right, everybody, so we're ready to put our butt on the grill. Some nice smoke going. Gonna go ahead and give ourselves a brush down. Great. All right. Now, before we throw this thing on, we gotta put our temperature gauge in the meat so we know what we're doing. I'm gonna be using my thermoprobe, but use whatever you have. Definitely recommend getting a thermometer. If you're going to be doing more smoking, it makes a really big difference. Especially one of these, it's wireless. Basically, this sticks in the meat. Here's your remote. You can take it with you and go hang out inside while this thing's going. So, we're up to temp. We're going to take our thermometer. We're going to put it in the meat. Just a second. We're going for a nice, thick part of this. Go right into the middle here. Okay. I'm gonna shut her down. We're gonna let this thing go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come out here every hour or so and I'm gonna baste it. Just with a little water, vinegar, and we're gonna keep that surface nice and moist. I'll see you guys in an hour.
What's soap?
Soap? No, it's vinegar and water. All right, welcome back everybody. It's been about 4 hours and we are done. Our pork shoulder has reached an internal temperature of about 201 degrees to almost 202. Oh, there we go, 202. We wrapped it in our foil. I'm sorry you guys didn't hear that. My neighbor was doing some work on their house and it was pretty loud. Basically, earlier I just took it off the grill, off the smoker, when it was reached an internal temperature of about 175 degrees, and then I wrapped it in tin foil. This is to lock in some more of the moisture, allows it to steam a little bit, and that'll do the little final last bump up to about 202. So we're just gonna leave this now for a good bit. We're gonna let it rest, and we're gonna come back later and we're gonna pull it apart. All right guys, so let's go ahead and open her up. So I let this rest for about an hour after I took it off the smoker, and let's see what we're looking like. All right, it's pulling away from the bone actually, that's good. Oh, it's still super hot. Pull a chunk off here. Oh yeah. Oh, that looks pretty freaking good. Oh yeah, super tender. Let's go ahead, see how she tastes. Well, that's pretty good. Super tender. Oh yeah. So there's our bone. That's how you know you did a nice job. If the bone pulls out like that, you're done. So, what I'm gonna do, I made some barbecue sauce here. If you guys wanna see how I made this, I actually made a video on it. I'll link it in the description. It's just, this is a thinner version, a little more mustard, vinegar based to go with the pork. So I'm just gonna take this, I'm gonna shred it down, I'm gonna add a little sauce, and I'm gonna show you guys what it looks like at the end. We're on to the last and the best step of the process. We gotta eat some of this. So, I'm gonna do it pretty simply. I'm just gonna make a little sandwich. I have some sourdough bread here that I made last night. If you guys wanna see how I made this, I'll throw the link up in the description. But it's awesome. I highly recommend, if you have the time, making some bread. So I'm just hacking off a slice. I don't even think we'll toast it. Who gives a shit? We have our bread, pulled pork. Take some of this sauce. And I actually think I'm just gonna put it on top of the pork. Take a nice healthy portion. Just realizing how much of this I made. Holy cow. We're gonna be eating a lot of pork. So, here we go. Just gonna add a little sauce on top. All right, finished product, here we go. We got our pulled pork sauce, bread on top. Here we go. I'm pretty excited to eat this. I'll give you guys exclusive content here. You should try this. This is good shit right here. All right, thank you for tuning in. If you stuck with me this whole time, I appreciate you. Thank you. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys like the longer videos, if you like how I'm doing them now. I'm happy to try out some other things. So, again, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys later.